Okay, hi guys. This painting has sold, so I'm getting ready to varnish it, and I was just going to show you guys how I varnish. So I use Liquitex Gloss Varnish. I don't use the high gloss, I just use regular gloss varnish. It gives it a shine, but it's not too shiny. The high gloss varnish is basically like a really thin coat of resin. This is just a nice gloss finish. This is another one that I've done that has gloss finish on it. To prepare my canvases, I usually just take a paper towel, a little bit of distilled water, and I'll just put a little bit of water on my paper towel, just enough to damp it, and then wipe over the top of my canvas just to remove any excess dirt or dust, any hair or anything that might be on the canvas. Just gently wipe it. Then I'll take the dry part of the paper towel and go over it again, just to make sure it's dried. Okay, this one looks good to go. I always wear gloves when I varnish, and I have a box of used gloves that I use to varnish with, so I'll just grab a couple of those. You're going to need a torch, even if you put a thin coat of varnish on, because you want to go over it and at least get all of the bubbles. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 coats. It depends on, I'm always going to do 2 coats at least, but the third coat, it depends on the second coat, the way it comes out, how it looks. If it's not smooth and a nice glossy finish, then I will do 1 more coat. So I get my varnish ready. This one hasn't been opened. This is really thin, liquidy varnish. I don't know if you guys can see how thin it is. It's like milk, kind of like a skim milk or something. So it spreads really well. You probably have, I don't know, I would say maybe 2 minutes work time before it starts to get tacky and thick, and where you are just going to be messing up your varnish if you go over it again. You probably have 2 minutes of work time to get it smoothed out and evened out and everywhere that you want it on the... Okay, just going to use this brush. Just going to lightly brush on the varnish in 1 coat, and then I'll let that dry for about 2 hours to make sure it's totally dry. It doesn't take that long to dry it if you do a super thin coat, which I do. It takes about 2 hours, and then you can come back and do another coat. So just pour a little bit on your canvas, and I like to wet my brush in it and then start spreading it. And see, this goes really far. Just that little bit goes a long way. So make sure you brush across, all the way across in one direction. And then you're going to come back over it in the same direction and go down your sides in an opposite direction. So to finish it, you're going to go the opposite way. So you're kind of like going over the same brush strokes that you just put on. And that's just to make sure that you get all your sides and your ends covered. This is a really easy finish gloss to work with, so You can do all your sides with the same amount. There's still some on your brush, so just go over your sides the same way you did the top, except you're just going to go in one direction because you don't want to mess up the top of the canvas now. Okay. So that's the first coat, and then just go over it one time with your torch really quickly. Just to I can't use my words this morning, to pop any bubbles that may be hanging out on the surface. Usually with a really thin coat like this, you don't have any air. When it dries, the bubbles pop themselves if it's thin enough. And then for my brush, I'm just going to put it in some water, because I am going to be using it again in a couple hours, so I'll just leave it sitting in this water so that the varnish doesn't harden on the brush. So once it dries, it's impossible to remove it. It's excellent for paintings, but terrible for your brush if you forget to take it. So just some water. No detergent or anything like that, just water. I'm not cleaning it out. I'm just trying to keep it moist until I'm ready to do the second coat. And then I'll just set that aside and leave it there. In a couple hours, I'll come back and we'll do the second coat.